Most of us never learned how to train our brains, which is why most of us needlessly settle, struggle, and worse, suffer. My name is Chris Doris, and I want to make brain training mainstream. This is my series, Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm interviewing badasses from all walks of life on what mental toughness means to them and their unique approaches to strengthening their minds. Hey folks, welcome back to this week's episode of Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I am your host, Chris Doris, and today we have a repeat guest, Dr. Fred Blum. Fred's first appearance on Tough Talks was a few episodes ago, and it was an amazing conversation on consciousness. Fred's a deep dude. He's brilliant and hysterical. Fred is a transformational coach, or he calls himself a transformative coach and a speaker. He's been helping executives and high performers create powerful results in the world while maintaining balance of body, mind, and spirit for almost 30 years now. He's got a degree in psychology and a degree in chiropractic. He actually studied network spinal analysis, which is a transformational form of it's a therapy, right? It's not just like about adjusting, your back. So he studied human transformation with some of the most brilliant minds in the world. He's trained in martial arts for 40 years, and he even performed in an off-Broadway comedy troupe for a while. His work is about supporting people to live an energy-rich life, which is exactly what we're going to be visiting on today. And he defines that as a life of productivity, vitality, peace, connection, and happiness. So we're going to let him elaborate upon that. Fred is here. Let's not keep him waiting. Let's go find him. Fred, where are you? And here he is, back for round two, Dr. Fred Blum. Dude, what's up?
Hey, it's good to be back.
Yeah, man, I'm glad. Thanks so much for making time to come back again. When we, our last conversation, I think was so rich with energy.
Mm-hmm. I see what you did there.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, that we didn't. As soon as we hung up, we realized we need some more time together. So, for those of you listening and or watching, check out our first episode. It's probably just a couple, 2 or 3 episodes earlier. If you look in the list of Tough Talks, it was an amazing dialogue, as will this one be. So, let me read a paragraph. It's actually the last paragraph in the bio that I have for you, because that's really what we wanted to talk about today. So here's that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is you. My work is about supporting you to live an energy-rich life. That is a life of productivity, vitality, peace, connection, and happiness. We'll identify outcomes that you define as critical to your amazing life, capitalized, and achieve them by freeing up the resources and teaching you the skills to use those resources most effectively. Ultimately, you'll learn to access and trust your own deep wisdom. So that's fascinating to me. Let's start talking about what you mean by, because this is really your brand, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, an energy-rich life or energy-rich living.
I mean, my website is energyrichliving.net, and that is a term I use. That's
energyrichliving.net. That's your website? Okay.
It is.
I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. So
awesome.
So what does energy-rich living mean?
Energy is fundamental to everything in life, right? So, like, for example, if I want to lift this cup, it requires energy to do that. Okay. If I want to change my diet, if I want to heal my body, those all require a certain type of energy. If I want to build a business or heal my relationship, those require different types of energy. And we can get into the different types and all that stuff, but yes. I'm just starting with the fundamental understanding that energy is the bottom line requirement to make any kind of a change in our lives.
Okay.
So if you want to make more money, get in shape, heal your emotional, whatever, it requires a different type of energy.
Okay.
And that's what I mean by energy-rich living. So basically, and I'm going to preface a lot of this by saying my teacher in this area, and a lot of what we'll talk about today, probably not all of it, but a lot of it, is a man named Dr. Donald Epstein. Don Body calls him Donnie, is probably, I really truly consider to be one of the great visionary minds of our time.
Wow. Wow.
The body of work this man has created is almost beyond compare. And I will not even attempt to try and like summarize it here because it's enormous.
Wow.
And it's all work that deals with human beings and human potential and the function of a human being, how we can be the best possible version of ourselves in this world. And he does that with body work, with exercises that people can do on their own, with understandings of things like energy, which we'll talk about here.
Yeah.
So, and I was really fortunate because, and initially he was a chiropractor, as was I. I was a holistic chiropractor for 25 years. And the very first that he developed in this whole series of tools and models is something called network spinal analysis, which is just a really, really advanced, refined, subtle energy version of chiropractic.
Okay.
And I was a chiropractor for 25 years. I studied with Donnie for, hundreds, if not thousands of hours during that time, just traveling all around the world and studying with him. And
all around the world, really?
All around the world. Well, I mean, yeah, I've seen him in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
I think Italy.
Well, hey, that qualifies around the world.
Still counts. Yeah, and all around the U.S. He's based out of Boulder, Colorado, and so most of the work we did was there.
Let's talk about the different kinds of energy that you referenced.
Okay. Well, yeah, and before I do that, I was going to say, so there were three basic levels. We're going to call them levels just to make it simple.
Okay.
So you could be energy poor, energy neutral, energy rich. And
okay.
It's a very simple way to understand. And this is, again, Donnie's work, that whatever the resources that we need. So, for example, let's say I'm trying to heal my body. Now, the most fundamental energy that we need to heal our body, although there'll be some overlap and we can get into that, but the most fundamental is what we would call life force. Life force is what runs your body. It's what runs your cells, your immune system, things like that.
Okay.
So if I want to heal, the most fundamental thing that I need to do is access more life force, turn it up in some way. Now, if I am energy poor, the experience that I have, both perhaps emotionally as well as physically, is that there is not enough energy for me to heal. And how am I going to experience that? I'm going to experience that as perhaps chronic illness that never seems to go away, low energy, lethargic. If it gets low beyond a certain level, it may actually feel to me like my survival is being threatened, and I may feel like in a state of fight or flight, because that's what fight or flight is, when I feel like I don't have the resources to survive in some way. So, the life force is that foundation that everything else is built on. So but we're talking about energy. So the energy poor just means I don't experience having enough to get the job done. Okay.
Okay.
Energy neutral is where I have just enough. So energy neutral is like kind of in life when you meet people and they're energy neutral. It's like, how you doing? I'm fine.
How's it going?
How you doing?
It's going.
It's going. Same old, same old. Right?
I don't like that response.
Yeah. Oh man, it's funny because that's like the goal of like modern medicine, for example, right?
What
like you're energy poor, you show up there, you're feeling like crap, and they want to get you just to the point of symptom free.
Oh, interesting.
Energy neutral, right?
Oh, wow.
They don't have any idea what like vibrant health is. If you go to your doctor and you say, I feel fine, he'd be like, what are you doing here?
Right. Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah. Fine is the goal.
Fine is the goal. Energy neutral is the goal.
How
for most
fascinating.
Right.
For you're saying for Western medicine?
Western medicine, but even for a lot of people, if you really look at most people in terms of how we've been conditioned, we love to watch lifestyles of the rich and famous and all that stuff, right? But the truth is we just want to have just enough to get by, Yeah. And I mean everyone, but you certainly see that's a lot. We dream about things, but we don't really do what we think, we don't take the action to actually raise it above that level.
Can we slow it down right here?
Yeah.
Examine some of this? Okay. So do you have any hypotheses on why that is? Why so many? Because it sounds like and totally redirect or correct right? Me, if I'm not hitting this or getting it right, it sounds like you're saying that most people settle.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
another way to say it.
so that's accurate. So people settle
I,
for
and if we go back
energy neutral living.
exactly, as opposed to right the fear that we're going to sink into energy poor. So we're really just trying to not be energy poor,
as opposed to
energy rich.
Being energy rich. Now, so who the hell wouldn't want that? Like, if given the option, who is going? I guess a masochist, a sadomasochist is the only person I can think of that said, "No, I actually prefer the suffering and the pain. I want to be energy impoverished." It's my choice. But who wouldn't choose energy richness, right? Vibrant living, full of
Well, it's an
enthusiasm.
interesting question. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because we could tie it back to the experience, because it's kind of like this. The way my current understanding of this is with these energy levels, and we'll identify all 5 and all that stuff. But
Okay.
It's kind of like on one level you say I like let's put it this way. Even to be empowered to choose, to where you believe that you have a choice in the energy level that you live on, is going to require that you have a certain level of energy richness in some area to begin with.
Why?
So, because if you're living energy poor, especially, for example, in what I would call mental energy, which is the part of us that makes a decision.
Yeah.
If you're living energy poor in that realm, you don't even feel like you have a choice. So you say to someone, dude, what's wrong? Come on, pick yourself up, do something, take some action. And you know what it's like. Any coach, has encountered people that are like, yeah, I know, I wish I could, whatever.
Yes.
Like for them, what we have to really understand and be compassionate to is that for them in that moment, they don't experience that they have what it takes. It's not just, that they're lazy or stupid. They really don't. And in a certain kind of way, they might be right, at least within that context. Meaning that they haven't yet found the inner resources to access to make that change.
Wow.
So, so maybe we'll add, let me define the 5 types.
Well, hold on before, because I'm pretty sure you're not going to forget that.
No, I won't.
Yeah. Did you have? I didn't let you answer, so I'm going to throw the question back out, which is, do you have a hypothesis, or is that it on why so many people don't choose energy richness?
Yeah, I think that would be, and maybe something else will emerge as we talk, but I think that's where I'd start, is they don't choose energy rich because, you might call it conditioning, certainly, but conditioning after a while becomes the habitual way in which we use our energy.
That would be my hypothesis, Fred.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because I think that this is pretty analogous to like energy rich living is, well, that's not terminology that I've used. I love it. But, I talk about living your life in your terms, right? As a success coach, right? And my belief is absolutely that no one needs to settle.
Right.
Right. So then the question is, well, why? Like, so, the Gallup industry does all these polls, right? And one of the polls that they do in America, and they've been doing it for the last 30 years, is on job satisfaction, and 84%. And for 30 years, the stat has remained consistent that 84% of people report disliking their jobs. That equals settling. And so you go, well, why? And all I can come up with is exactly what you're saying, really, which is two things. They don't believe that they can have what they want, that what they really want is outside of the realm of possibility for them, or B, that they aren't resourceful enough to go create it. Basically, that's not accessible.
And a combination of the two, as likely as not.
Yeah.
Meaning,
right. That they don't know they have an option, I guess, is really the first one.
And not knowing you have an option can be tied to, you call it resourceful. It's the same thing. It's not perceiving the inner resources, which is what I mean by energy. Energy is the fundamental resource.
Wow.
that makes a change.
That's amazing. That's an amazing sentence right there. Can you
Yeah.
repeat that sentence?
Yeah. Energy is the fundamental resource that we need to make any change in our life.
Who
Whatever the
doesn't
change
have it? Who doesn't have access to it? Is there?
Well, we all have access to it.
We all have access.
It's not.
To it.
Yeah. I mean,
So someone in the depths, the darkness of like chronic depression has access to the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
Even though they don't believe that.
They don't believe it, right? So in effect, it's not available to them until whatever work needs to happen, for them to find the access to it.
Okay.
But it sometimes, it requires a little bit of work. It's not just as simple as, come on, man, like a pep talk doesn't always do.
Yeah.
They need to really, and it's really just about meeting people where they are and people meeting themselves where they are. So like people being willing to meet their own experience exactly as it is. So if I'm depressed and I'm willing to just fully own, we talked about this last time,
we did.
fully own my depression in this moment and just experience it,
without the story.
Without the story. From there, somehow it transforms. The depression will change into something else. Now, I'm not saying it's like, magic bullet. It takes whatever time it takes.
Yeah.
But it can change. And as it does, your resources begin to change. You begin to have access to a deeper level of your own resources. So the answer, the old saying is the only way out is through. That's it,
Right. And now, we did talk about that because you reminded me, and reminding me again right now of one of the biggest takeaways that I have from the experience studying in India at the Oneness University, right, was everything when experienced fully becomes joy. And that took me about a week to get. Seriously,
yeah,
that took me like about a week to even get, because the first time I heard that, I'm like, what's that shit mean? The hell's that?
Yeah.
And then we did.
And I've heard it say, and you did some experience of it, you mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And that's the key. It's the experience.
Yes.
It's the experience of sitting with whatever it is, sitting with your experience, whether it's anger, fear, sadness, whatever, even physical pain.
Yeah.
Sitting with it allows it to become something else. And you say joy. I've heard it say everything is love in disguise. The reason for that, by the way, is again, to go back to our last call, is that's who we are. Who we are behind the ego and the identity and all this stuff. And we'll refer people to the previous, we did an hour on that, right?
Yeah.
But just because it really is the context, at least for me, even for a discussion of energy,
Right.
Like, to understand, and again, understanding is the wrong word, but to experience, to be able to get a glimpse, and little by little, enough glimpses that we begin to ground ourselves more and more in our true nature as love, peace, clarity, joy. When we begin to see ourselves as that, in my work, like with clients, that's job number one. They've got to have that. And once they begin to have at least a certain level of that experience where they can begin to feel into the difference between the identity, the ego, which can be knocked about constantly throughout the day, good news or bad news, you feel good or bad. It's like, boom, that's all the ego.
Yeah.
The moment you're not like totally at the effect of every circumstance in your life, meaning you've got some sense in my world of who you really are, then is really the best opportunity to start looking at the tools and things like we're talking about here, the energy and stuff like that. Because you remember, if I could go back one more time to the previous interview.
Yeah. There's no limit to the number of times that you're permitted to refer back to that brilliant dialogue we had.
How awesome we are, right?
Yeah, right. There's no ego in that.
Yeah, right. I hate to harp on how awesome we are, It's true. But anyway, so the point, remember, not the point, but one of the key points of last time was that once we really get who we are, then we can create games in the world. And we created a definition of a game, which is we arbitrarily make it up. We make up that we're going to make this more important than this. Why? Because we can. Because that's what games are. Yeah. And we can actually, there's a deeper level of a game that we can talk about in the context of energy, which we'll come back to.
Cool. All right. So you want to do the five kinds?
Okay, let's do that. Yeah. So let's do that. So these, again, this is Epstein's version, but this is stuff, again, that's been talked about for thousands of years probably. Okay. But the way we define energy and the way I define it in my practice is life force, emotion, mind, soul, and spirit.
All right. I want to write those down because we're going to go through them. Life force?
Yeah. Life force is what we were just talking about a few minutes ago, is what runs your body. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and then could you list them out again for me?
Life force, emotion, mind.
Yeah.
And there's two types of mind if you want to leave space, upper and lower. We'll get to that.
Okay.
And then soul and spirit.
Cool. All right. Let's rock.
All right. So we did life force. That's the foundation. That's like, in order to function as a human physical body or any living species, life force is required. That's what keeps the physical form running.
Okay.
All right. Emotion it's like drive. It's motivation. It's the energy to make a change. Now, this, by the way, comes back to your question of why wouldn't anybody just choose joy, right? Because emotional energy is that drive. It's like that kind of energy. It doesn't always feel that way, but that's kind of a common way to see it. Okay. That it's what pushes us to make a change in life. Without that, you could have all the knowledge that like joy is available. I read all the books and all that stuff, but somehow I just don't have the oomph to actually go for it. And people need that emotional energy. And there's a way, again, we can get very complex here, but a lot of times, again, it's to put people in the experience. So one of the areas, the breakthrough point between having the emotional energy and making the decision to change is what I call being stuck. So being stuck, and again, this is all, I'm paraphrasing Epstein's work here, but being stuck is that experience of seeing yourself, of recognizing yourself as stuck in a pattern, So, sometimes I give the example of somebody who's trying to lose weight. And this is the third night in a row at 2 a.m. when they find themselves eating cookie dough out of the bowl in the refrigerator, right?
Yeah. So
the first night they're doing it, they're doing what I would call stage 1, or Epstein calls stage 1, which is helplessness. And they go, I can't stop it. I'm such a loser, and there's no way. And I'm not making fun of them. People really genuinely have that experience of feeling helpless.
Okay.
But that's almost another conversation, okay? Then stage 2 might be where they're eating the cookie dough again. It's the next night. And now they're going, these damn kids are driving me crazy, How am I supposed to lose weight when, like that? Uh-huh. Stage 2 could be one of two things. Stage 2 either looks like blame, like I just did, or putting the solution out. So it's always putting it outside of yourself. So it's either their fault or the solution is outside you. So you're saying...
So that's victim thinking.
It's victim thinking, right? It's saying, it's like saying victim is to blame, but you also might be saying, the solution, tomorrow I'm going to go on the magic diet, and that's going to save me. Or I'm going to finally call that trainer and he's going to save it, whatever. Oh. But it's never you that's responsible. It's always something outside you that's either causing it or it's going to save it for you, solve it for you.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yep.
Now, stage 3 is what I'm talking about, being stuck. So stage 3, you pick up you look at that spoonful of cookie dough and you go, when am I going to stop this? It's like you are fully aware that you are the one that's putting the spoon in your mouth. Yeah. Now, I want to emphasize at stage 3, you may still put the spoon in your mouth. Okay? But you are very clear that you did it. And that's a breakthrough.
So now we're getting into ownership.
Exactly. Okay. Because it's like I joke, and it's really funny. People will get this wrong. I'll ask people jokingly, do you know there's one common denominator for every problem you've ever had? Now, if they have even a glimpse of stage 3 or beyond, they're going to say what?
Mm-mm.
It's
Sorry,
me, right?
Gulp.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. It's me. Like, have you ever had a problem that you weren't there for? Right?
Yeah, right.
But it's hilarious. Like if
Well,
somebody's
I
in
love that
stage,
sentence. That's a good one. I'm syncing that.
yeah, right.
You never had a problem that you weren't there for. That's so great. I love that.
If you're not there, it ain't a problem.
Right.
I mean, until you perceive it as one.
Because
right?
you can't even interpret it. Right. Like I got robbed.
Right.
I was in Malaysia.
Right. Exactly. It ain't a problem until you show up and make it a problem.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And so, but if they're not in that state, where they don't at least have that level of ownership, they'll say like, they'll be like, my mother.
Right.
and God bless them, because for them, that's real, and then you have to meet them in that world. It's like, that's where they are. But stage 3 is, it's applying this emotional energy principle that we're talking about. So when you go, I'm the one doing this. And that energy, again, this is emotional energy, has to build. It's got to build. I'm doing this in a very linear way. It's not always so linear, but just for the sake of discussion, it has to build up to the point where we say enough. You take the spoon and you put it back in the bowl and you close the door and you go back to bed. Mm-hmm. That's the next level. That's mental. That's what I call lower mental energy. Lower. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me go back for a second if I can, because this might be useful. I'm just remembering something for people that are watching this or listening to it, is to actually have the experience. So emotional energy, if you can, just think about any experience that you're like really committed to, like you want it so bad, and feel that feeling in your body, like, oh, like I would do anything to have that. Mm. If not in this moment, think about some time. It could have been when you were 6, mm-hmm. and you just really wanted something and you were going to do anything it took to get it. Mm-hmm. We've all had that experience. And this is how we can even begin to access it again, because we can, with our minds, find that state in ourselves. Sometimes it can be hard, but that's the essence of it. Mm. So sometimes I describe emotional energy as like the low gear in a car or truck when it's going up a hill. Mm-hmm. And you can feel that feeling of torque pulling you up. Yeah. That's emotional energy. That's what it feels like.
That's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to just tap into that experience, because then, like we say, it's got to build up enough. If you're trying to make a change in your life, you have to build that energy, that motivation energy strong enough until finally at a certain point you say, enough. I'm done. This stops now, or this changes now, whatever it is. Mm. And that's lower mental. Lower mental is the energy of making a decision. Mm. Some of you, you may have heard this, or some of your listeners may have heard that, like, decision has the same root as the word incision.
Oh, no, I never heard that.
Yeah, it's cool, right? So, like, you're literally cutting away everything but what you've decided. Decide, that one too? Mm-hmm. Decide has the same root as the word suicide or homicide. So now you're killing the other option. Wow, except yours.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Where was all this wisdom before I made the damn all-in program? I could have used this a minute ago, buddy. All right. Thanks for holding out.
Oh, all right. Well,
I love that.
Thanks for holding out. Sorry.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. As far as I know, that's a legitimate interpretation of the, what do you call it, the etymology of the word, or whatever, like that's literally where it comes from. So in lower mental, the energy had to build. We had to have something that had us build to the point where it was so uncomfortable that we said, stop, enough, I'm changing. And that's what the lower mind does. It divides things into this or that. So it's got a very powerful utility. It's difficult to live entirely. There are some people that live entirely from their lower mind. So it's all like they're like the CEO or the stereotypical CEO. They make decisions. You think of them like on the phone, buy, sell, those guys.
Yeah, yeah.
But so there's not a lot of like, what's the word, like fullness or joy or happiness in that world. But it's very decisive. It gets shit done.
Okay.
In that world.
Okay.
So there's a place for that. Like that's a resource that we certainly want to have access to.
Okay.
Now, upper mental, if we move on to the next level, is very different. Upper mental is big picture thinking. Upper mental now understands that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So upper mental is your vision for what you want in the big picture that you want to create in life. So it's not just this decision, it's how does this decision fit in the much larger vision that I want to create. Now, this just, it reminds me of something like interesting how these all fit together. And I thought this is one of Downey Epstein's brilliant innovations here, is that it's not just like, okay, this one leads to this one leads to this one. It's completely like it can move in any combination. So, for example, I can't find the emotional energy, but then I remember my vision, whatever it might be. And that vision inspires me to find the emotional energy to make a decision, lower mental. You see how they can feed each other from different directions.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
So upper mental is, when we see something larger than just the next steps in front of us. And, lower mental, by the way, is also the part that creates the linear process, step 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. But we need, but towards what? Are we just trying to, get by, or are we trying to create something bigger? Yeah. Either is fine, ultimately, but you just understand what resources are available.
When you say either is fine, I don't know about that. Is it really? Like mediocre living is fine?
Well, I hear you, and I mean, it's essentially people live however they live, and they make a choice or they don't make a choice to live the way they do. I don't even know what, I mean, like, so if I was a mom staying at home and raising 4 kids, and that's my life, I'm committed to that. Is that any different than me being the CEO of, IBM or something?
My answer to that is it totally depends on one thing. Your interpretation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so we are saying the same thing, right? So mediocre would mean to you living below your standards of what.
Right.
Yeah, I can totally get that.
And I don't.
So there's a standard.
That's not fine. Right. Okay.
Right.
That's not fine.
So it's about standards.
Right. Is my life? Am I living my life the way I want to?
Yeah, I totally get that.
That's not fine.
Yeah, I would absolutely.
That's why we do what we do. That's why we're in the profession.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. Yeah, right. There aren't many people like that. They call themselves mediocrity coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Energy neutral living. that could be a thing. And probably could be.
Yeah, that could be a good skit. That would be a fun skit. That'd be pretty funny, right?
That would be, right? You should
watch a coaching session.
Right. How are you doing? Fine.
Fine.
That's good. And then the coach would be like, well, that's good.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, see you next week.
Yeah. That's have that slightly whiny tone to
it. Fred, you're one of the funniest people I've ever met. And I got to tell you, I am intentionally, totally suppressing my own laughter here because it's going to send me into a coughing fit because I still have this tickle. So just know that I'm really working hard. Like
controlling.
You can tell by looking at me or listening to me, but I'm suppressing my coughing.
All right. Our listeners at home appreciate that.
Yes. I've already turned the microphone off twice during this call so I could cough. I don't know if you noticed. But if you see that, like me doing this, it's because I'm turning off the microphone for a second so I can choke.
Right.
Anyway.
All right. So, all right. So let's go to the next level.
Soul.
So from upper mental, soul. Exactly. Now, soul is where we, unashamedly, I will say, we're now dipping into the spiritual realms.
Good.
Yeah. I
Bring
mean,
it.
that's, to me, this is moving closer to what we spoke about last week or a couple of weeks ago again, which is true identity, true nature.
Okay.
So, in fact, let me say it this way. I'm going to spin around for a second. Spirit, which is the fifth level, is really not something that we access personally. Spirit is the undifferentiated whole. It is oneness. It is pure consciousness. So there is no me, there's no Fred or Chris at the level of spirit.
Okay.
It's just oneness. Like I think we used the example last time of, like you could see in this video, there's two boxes, one for me and one for you.
Yes.
But the background, the screen that the boxes, so there's this illusion of separateness.
The duality.
But exactly. But the screen behind us is the oneness from which these images spring.
That's pretty cool.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's a cool metaphor. And so at the end of this interview, the pictures will disappear and will fall back into the oneness of the screen.
That's so deep.
Deep, baby.
That's cool. Yeah, man. Let's go. Here we go.
And so that's spirit. And there really isn't, we don't use spirit. You don't tap into spiritual energy. It's just the source that we all come from. But soul, as I see it, is the very first contraction of this pure spiritual energy into something or someone. So soul is, I believe, again, this is just my personal belief, and some of this is Epstein as well, is you come from the oneness as a unique individual with unique gifts and talents and passions and inclinations that you bring into this incarnation, into this physical world. So we're going from the formless into form. And soul is the very first shift from oneness towards form.
Okay.
Now, why is that relevant? Because before we talked about making up a game, and we said, how can, so there's two levels of the game, right? There's a game that I make up with my mind, which is like what we would call a goal, okay? What do you want to do today? Or what do you want? How much money do you want to make this year? I want to make $500,000. Okay, that's a goal. And you can tell when a goal comes from the mind. Nothing wrong with that, but it's got a certain mental quality to it.
Okay.
The soul is different. The soul, I would say, is analogous to the heart. So when the soul speaks, it has a very different quality to it. So when you ask somebody this really general question, I used to ask all my coaching clients this right in the very first meeting. I'd say, so what do you want? And most of the time they get all freaked out by the question because they think they're supposed to have some right answer to it, And so they go into their head and they'd start saying, I really want to travel, or I really want to have financial freedom. They give all the same answers that everyone always gives. Okay. Nothing wrong with any of those answers. But what we're looking for is when they light up, basically. When there's a certain spark that shows up that's like, whoa, wait a second. What was that you just said? Because that's the heart. That's the soul speaking through that. And the soul is now giving you some piece of who you really are. So people say, what's my purpose in life? It's a big question. And there's all kinds of surveys and stuff to figure out what's your life purpose. To me, your life purpose is any combination of your natural gifts and your natural passions and inclinations. So that could be a lot of different things. Now, it's nice if the one you pick creates the greatest level of contribution. But even that's questionable in terms of what is a contribution. For example,
right.
If I'm really living life deeply in alignment with who I am, I suggest that that's a contribution in and of itself to the world. Not necessarily any less so than feeding the hungry or whatever.
Yeah, right. Right. So somebody crafted, the wall behind you is wooden and it's beautiful. And that's someone's craftsmanship.
Exactly.
Right.
And
You
yeah,
know, right? And that's beautiful. And that's the gift, that person's gift to the world, is to
exactly.
be in
Right.
that passionate space.
Yeah. There's a great quote. It says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive,
Mm.
because what the world needs are people who
Yeah,
have come alive.
I love
Right.
that. I read that recently somewhere. That I love that. That's
Howard
great.
Thurman, I believe, is the author of that book. Howard Thurman.
Now you're
You
just
can
showing
look
off.
that up. I think that's correct.
Okay.
But so yeah, so the soul is about truly being alive, and this comes back to a game. So if we know who we are in terms of true nature, love, peace, clarity, and then we can see that our soul, coming from the energy of soul, is to express that love, peace, clarity in the world through our unique gifts, whatever they may be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's, I believe, that's the best we can do
Mm.
as human beings.
Well,
That's like our highest level of the game.
okay. So let's now. Okay, so we've gone through the 5 levels. Mind has 2 sub levels.
Mine does 2, but it still comes out to 5, because typically I don't include soul when we're talking about this. I mean, not soul, I'm sorry, spirit, when we're talking about this, because it's not a resource that we access.
Okay, so let's talk now. Let's bring this into from the theoretical to the practical.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about how. So, what do we do with all that?
Wow. That is a very broad practical question.
Well, right. That was intentional.
Okay.
It's actually, no, it wasn't. It's honest. It's like the question I had for you, because this is the first time I've ever heard any of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, great. I love it. I mean, everything you've just said feels great. Okay, so tell me what to do with it.
It does get a little tricky here, because this gets into the realm of what I like to call mastery. So
Great.
I like to talk about mastery of action, mind, and energy.
Okay,
And
mastery of action, mind, and energy.
Yeah, and I say it that way because it sounds the best, but the truth is that's not the order that
Oh,
we
that's funny.
that we
Okay.
best apply this, right?
Okay.
So mind, to me, has a very broad context. Really, ultimately, to me, mastery of mind is the discovery of who we really are, like we spoke about in the previous interview.
Mm-hmm.
Energy, then, again, like I said earlier, once we really, really get who we are is, much more than just our ego. We could then create a game in life with the soul and all those things we talk about. And then mastery of energy is understanding how to utilize these resources, how to feel them in your body. That's why I try to give people an experience of them. If we come back to soul for a moment, it's hard to really give you the experience, but soul is like that sense of lightness and peace. Maybe if you think of, when you were, when you first saw your children or something, if you have that experience or something like that, because it's the experience of
Peak experiences, man.
It's an experience where for a moment we lose like that sense of separate self.
Yeah, that's so in sports it's called the zone.
The zone.
Okay,
Exactly.
and Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi calls it flow. Same.
You are the first man I've ever heard say his name correctly.
It's risky. Oh, correctly. Yeah. So I got it right?
I think that's correct. It's pretty close.
The way I was taught to remember it was like chicks in the hallway, right? Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. So
there you go.
But he wrote the book Flow.
The book Flow, right?
So like whenever I'm working with, whenever I'm doing a group or a workshop with a bunch of people, and I ask them, to think about the best evers in anything, whether it's music, right, or sport, or even public speaking, or anything that can qualify as a performance. You think about your best ever. Mm-hmm. Everyone describes what you're describing right now. So this is soul. Right. It's soul, right?
It's even
lightness of being. It's effortless. It's like effortless ease, but flawlessness. So it's like effortless flawlessness, which is an unbelievable combination.
Right. It is. It's like it's it's the state that's possible for us to live in when I mean, as trite as it might sound, you really can only find that state in the present moment.
Yeah, well, that how's that trite? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly, because that's another way that people describe it. Is like
Yeah.
you're so absorbed in the now. You had no concern about you couldn't give a shit about what's already happened, except maybe a little celebration that was amazing too. You have
Yeah.
absolutely no like concern, no anxiety level concern about the future. Like it's like a lightness and a rightness.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I really think that can be, I mean, it's hard to say for sure. I mean, because everyone maybe have different experiences of this, but there's an element of soul certainly available in that. You know, how it fits with like a bigger mission or purpose, I can't say. But in the moment when you're in that flow, there is something really, again, we can call it spiritual, you know, from my perspective, because spiritual just means we lose our personal separate sense of self and we merge into some bigger thing.
That's interesting because you're describing so the soul energy level experience is spiritual,
Yeah.
which is the next level, spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the more time we spend in the soul level of energetic living, then the closer we are to, or the more we're experiencing our spirit selves connectedness.
I would say so.
Is that I'm just winging this shit.
I would say so. You know, and in any moment, we're living with all five, including spirit in this way. You know,
all right.
There's all five of them are in some combination or always engaged. Right? We always have some level of life force. There's always some level of emotion, even if it's minimal, even if it's just to get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
mm-hmm.
There's always some mind level of making decisions. There's always some even minimal level of seeing some bigger picture, even if it's what I'm going to do with my day. You know, Your soul is always present, whether you're aware of it or not. And you have a true identity. You're always part of the oneness, whether you know it or not. So it's not like we turn these on or off, but we access them intentionally.
Wait, what was? Could you say that again? I don't think I heard the right.
Yeah, and I mean, it's almost like we have to sort of think it through as we say it, but all of these energies are present all the time.
Right.
And in fact, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here, but we might even say they're all present 100% all of the time. But when we go into an ego state, when we become, what I would call the separate self, which is the nature of the ego, it's either the oneness, again, last call, or the separate self, then the nature of the ego or the separate self is limitation. So we begin, breaking these things down into fragments, into just pieces. I'm not sure how useful this part of it is. So maybe we don't have to go too far down there. But the idea, the idea is that we can, begin to actively, the more we have the experience, this comes back to mastery. Okay. So as we begin to develop mastery in these energies, meaning we learn how to experience them, we learn what they feel like. We begin to even know when they feel high or low. When we feel, okay, in the realm of lower mental right now, I feel energy rich, energy neutral, energy poor.
Okay, so sorry. Okay, here we go. That was because I think you're answering the question I really want to get back to, which is
the practical part.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I want everybody listening or watching to be able to hang up or walk away from this and go, okay, I'm going to go practice that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So let's like really reduce it down if we can. All right.
Yeah.
Like without.
It's a complex subject, but we're going to do the best we can.
Yeah. So like if I'm so you're coaching me. All right. And I'm digging on all this, and I'm gonna go. All right, okay, cool. Give me something.
And you have something you want to create, right?
Okay. So I got right. Yep. Yeah. We'll say I want to. Let's say that my dream is to is I want to leave the chaos of Wall Street, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to move down to goddamn Key West and open up a salsa shop because that just sounds like the most coolest freaking thing ever.
Yeah. Which I know where that came from.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, that's a true story. I mean, that's actually...
I know it is. That's
right.
I know.
Like I met the person down in Key West, and I just sat with them and drank beers and ate all different sauces, talking about their dreams and how they left Wall Street. So it was amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. Well, okay. So like if I'll say it this way, but kind of think about, I mean, maybe you tell me if this is practical enough. But if I'm talking with somebody, so like if it's in a coaching conversation and we're focusing only on this energetic component, because that's what we're trying to learn here. In the coaching world, we might include a lot of other, not a lot of other things, but you know, I might in the conversation with them, I'm going to be listening. So the first thing, I mean, if I was really doing it in order, would be how motivated do I feel then? Like if you say to me, you know, I really would love to have the salsa shop, but I don't know. It's probably just a stupid dream.
Right.
Well, then I know that there's no emotional energy, right? There's no.
Let's say I'm there. Let's say that's exactly what. Let's just say that's where I am, because I think a lot of people.
Okay,
are there,
so you really feel that, like, oh man, that would be awesome.
but,
and then you're thinking, but exactly, you know, but I got this job and I got this and I got this,
and it's going to be expensive, and I've never run a business on my own. I don't know.
So you're in the land of
real estate.
you're in the land of considerations. So what's happening is you went into lower mental, which is what thinks about all that stuff, but you haven't like really utilized the power intentionally of lower mental, you know? So like probably if you're still in consideration, you probably need a little more emotional energy underneath it, because when you want it bad enough, then I might just ask you, look, Chris, are you going to do this or not? You know, what you tell me. Do you really want to have this salsa shop in Key West or not?
Yes, I do.
So I'm putting you right in that place of making a decision.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Which is lower mental.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you say yes. Okay. And if I feel it, you got to feel that. Now, again, we're going to make it all one conversation. This might happen over, a few weeks. But okay, great. You got that. Boom. And I felt it. Yes. He made a decision. He killed off all the possibilities except that one, right? So it's not like, should I have a salsa shop or should I become a professional badminton player? You know, you're going to have salsa shop is what's going to have my focus right now.
Yep. I committed homicide to all the other alternatives.
Right, exactly.
Right.
That's what you did.
Yeah.
So you are now focused on one decision.
Right.
Okay, awesome. Now, let's talk about this. What do you want this shop to look like? Now we're moving into upper mental. Can you see it on the beach? What do you imagine your life is going to be like when you have a salsa shop? Imagine it's 5 years from now and you have a fully established, thriving salsa shop on the beach in Key West.
Yeah.
How's that going to work? How is that going to look? What's your day going to be like? Give me like, an awesome day in your life. And it's like the idea is, if you start going, well, I don't know, I might be worried about, no. We want big picture vision. We want you to create, like, paint the picture of the life that you envision is possible. Like something put this idea in your head, right? To have a salsa shop. Something got you excited about it. So I want you to think about how awesome that would be. Yeah. And especially built on the foundation of a decision. Yeah. Because it doesn't have to go linearly, but again, there's a certain logic to it. So you have that emotional energy that said, yeah, I really want this. Then we made a decision, which has you really focus your energy in a particular direction. Now there's like a possibility of something that begins to emerge. Wow, I could have a shop on the beach. And you begin to see it. That turns you on. Now that excites you to go to take what I call clear action. Clear action is action that arises from the foundation of emotional energy, a clear decision, and a clear vision.
Wow.
Because then when we act really that's a whole other model. I mean, I have this whole other thing I call 5 problems, 4 solutions, which identifies clear body, clear mind, clear action, and clear connection. Sorry, that's a whole other.
All right. Okay. That's all right. Yeah. Can we schedule round 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're setting up constant interviews. Yeah. But even just knowing that like when you have really found the internal motivation, the drive, which is the emotional energy, and you made a decision based on the fuel that drive provides, think of it like fuel, and then that decision inspires you to think of what's possible. Because now you're in, right? The decision is the all-in state.
Right.
You made that decision. Right. You are all in. Now you can dream because you're in. You know? You might as well dream now.
Right.
Now, Now, if we were including the soul in this conversation, the only thing I would say about it is it would probably come top down instead of the way we just did it.
What?
Okay, so in other words, the soul, you just, it's like it almost gives a life of its own. So the soul says, somehow it inspires, that word inspiration. You're
Yeah.
inspired, whatever, could be a salsa shop, right? But you're now inspired to open the salsa shop. So it's not even like, wow, that would be cool. You know, a friend of mine had one and it looks like fun. That's the mind. Somehow the soul, you know, it's like Socrates from Dan Millman's book, Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
Oh, that's
You ever
funny.
read those books?
Oh, of
Oh,
course.
they're such
I
good
was
books.
just thinking about
But so
last night for some.
Socrates, really? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So Socrates is like the gas station attendant, right?
Yes.
He's like, so you're like the salsa salesman, but really like you're like this totally like this sage, the sage of salsa.
Right. Oh, this is great. Yeah.
It's so cool, right? And
It
so
is,
like
because I
you're
sit
there
there, right, and I have people
because
come in and I just hang with them, and then maybe a dog walks
right,
in, and I'll give them
exactly.
dog food or something, and people walk by,
Yeah.
and the doors are open, and we hang out, and that's right. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
So that's the soul.
Right.
You know, that's like you're not. It's not really even about the salsa. That just became the vehicle. You know, that you get to really just show up in the world as who you are.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
And so the soul, again, the soul is the highest vibration, like as a source of fuel. So the soul says, "This is who you are. You're a salsa guy out in Key West."
Yeah.
And then from the top down, then you see the vision. You're going to go, "Oh, I get it." You know, yeah, I could see myself on the beach, and okay, damn it, I'm going to do it. You know, lower mental. And then all of a sudden, the emotional energy is like, "Holy crap, this is going to be awesome. I can feel it." You know, and then life force, which is the lowest energy level, is really the action. Like that's where your body actually gets up and does something to make it happen. You know, grounded in the doing in the world.
Wow.
You know,
that's
so it can go either direction. Yeah.
Right. Wow. That's good stuff, man.
There's so much cool stuff in there. I know.
Yeah, it is, and it's all and it's, quite honestly, this podcast is called Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness, and that's all this is. By my definition, really, by my definition, which is to be able to mental toughness. You could say is training yourself to use your mind only in ways that serve you. Have you be your highest self, and well, we could say, live an energy-rich life.
Why not?
So why not? Why the hell not? And the only reason I can think of is because I don't believe, well, like we said before, is like I don't know that that's available to me, or I don't believe I'm resourceful enough, and neither of those are true. So thank you again, brother, for another energy-rich combo.
Yeah,
I appreciate you making time, man, and dropping all your wisdom bombs. I could talk to you all day. So you had made an offer at the end of our last conversation for the audience. Is that offer still, does that still stand?
Absolutely. I mean, because one of the things I it's like my concern, if you will, is by sharing all this stuff, both last time and today, is that we're almost like unintentionally create a different problem for people, because it's like so much to like, how do you even navigate this world? And that really is what, both of us are here for. But I'll make the offer is, it does really stand that if somebody is listening to this podcast and if they hear something in it that inspires them and they think, God, if only I could put this into practice in my life, I will pretty much sit down with anyone for 90 minutes, via phone, Skype, whatever, even in person. Look, if you're in Austin, Texas area, come knock on my door. But and the first conversation, I don't charge ever for it. It's really just an opportunity to see if I can serve. So we're going to sit down and we're going to dive into these ideas, and we are going to go as far and as deep as we possibly can, and that's it. And that might be the only time we ever talk, or it might be the beginning of a lifelong relationship.
That's amazing. It's amazingly generous. So how does someone take you up on that?
Sure. I mean, really the simplest thing, I guess I give you two options. You can call me, 512-436-6666. 584-9075. That's my direct line.
Okay.
And because it really, really is just me. So I will be answering the phone.
Right on.
And the other is to email me, which is Dr. Fred, DRFRED, at energyrichliving.net.
.net at Energy
Yeah.
Rich Living. All right, I'll make sure I include all of that.
And the third, I guess, option is if anyone who's been listening to this heard something and they just go, God, I'd like some more information. I have a whole bunch of stuff that I can send that will summarize some of these conversations, that will talk about the different types of energy and a whole bunch of other stuff, Dr. Epstein's models, things that I've created,
Oh, wow.
the 5 problems, 4 solutions thing that I mentioned briefly, that I'm more than happy to share either.
Wow, that's cool. All right. So if they just
Yeah.
email you and then say, hey, man, can I get some of that material?
Yeah. Just say, tell me more, something, and I'll more than happy to share that stuff with them.
Wow, that's really cool of you. That's great.
Yeah.
Please take him up on that.
Yeah.
Thank you,
do.
brother. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's it. Please do.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thanks again, man, for another energy-rich conversation. Dr. Fred Blum, everyone. Create miracles. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, guys. Be well.
Bye. Right. The dude does not disappoint. That was another fun and deep. He is one of our deeper guests, isn't he? He might be actually one of the deepest guests that we've had on Tough Talks, Dr. Fred Blum. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And I suspect we're going to have him back. I took some notes. He drops, he's good at this. He drops some bombs and he says, that's actually a conversation for another day. And it's a conversation that I want to have. I want to know more about what he's talking about, the 5 problems and the 4 solutions. And he's talking about 3 principles of effortlessness, energy, alignment, and timing. And energy is what we talked about today. And the 5 levels of energy: life force, emotion, then mind, which is broken into lower and upper mind, and then soul and spirit energy. Look, he made a very generous offer again. And I say again because he was a guest a few weeks ago, or a few episodes ago, and he made the offer then, and he's reiterating the offer now, which is remarkably generous. And I really encourage you to take him up on it. He's offering you a complimentary 90-minute coaching session. And he is a phenomenal coach. I know that. I've worked with him on both sides, as a coach and as a peer, as a client. So I can give testimony to the fact that he is a true badass as far as coaches go. He's a badass as far as humans go. And here's the way to reach him if you missed it. His cell phone number, he's putting it out there, 512-584-9075, or you can email him at drfred@energyrichliving.net. And that is his website, energyrichliving.net. So take him up on that. All right, thanks, folks. We'll see you soon for the next episode of Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. Chris Doris, your host, signing out.